we all know how short life is. I mean, the mortality rate is still tracking at 100% the last time I checked. And even though this life is short, we still don't want it to suck. This podcast is all about tools and insights from psychology, philosophy, and spirituality to help this journey suck less. In fact, we may even learn how to embrace the life we have while creating the life that we want. My name is Morgan, and this is the PS We Expire podcast. I'm so glad you're here. Today, I want to talk about what you do when you feel like giving up. I am a fairly ambitious, positive person, and lately I have just been really feeling discouraged and deflated about the things that I normally am excited about. And I want to share this story with you that comes with this beautiful poem by Albert Camus. And I think that I hope it will really help you too if you are just feeling, ugh. I don't even know how else to explain it besides that. But the way that I came to find this poem was I was cleaning up my office, getting rid of a bunch of files and papers that I didn't need anymore, which feels so good, by the way. I love getting rid of things. I love throwing things away. And at the bottom of the bottom drawer of my filing cabinet, underneath all of these papers and just kind of miscellaneous like computer cords and stuff like that, I found this book. Now, this book I bought years ago. I bought this several years before Annie passed away because I wanted it to be the book that I had people sign at her funeral. Now, Annie died in December of 2022, but I knew for a long time that she was going to pass away. And so I happened to be doing this shopping in a gift shop, and I came across this beautiful yellow book, and it's called Shine, and it has all these lovely quotes in it about life and about letting your essence show and letting your brightness show to other people and not being afraid to just lean into who you are. And I felt like that was such a beautiful way to encapsulate Annie's life. And so that's why I bought the book. And then I tucked it away. And then when it came time to get it out for her funeral, I couldn't find it anywhere. I was looking in the attic. I was looking in all the places I could possibly think of, but I couldn't find it. And a year later is when I was cleaning out my office and came across this book. Now, I was flipping through the book, reading all the quotes and feeling sad, of course. And I came across this quote that said, "I found within me an invincible summer," by Albert Camus. And it really landed with me. And I didn't know the rest of the poem at that point at all. But I went and I looked it up. And because I was so struck by this image of having within ourselves an invincible summer. I love this verbiage of invincibility. Is that even a word? Invincible, that it is impossible to break it. It is impervious to wear and tear. It is impervious to degradation over time. And it is in us this part of ourselves, this hidden, tucked away part of ourself that is strong and resilient. And so I loved this image of the invincible internal summer. And I had to go look up the poem, and I'm going to read it to you now. And then I want to talk to you more about not only how to find that in yourself, but what to do when you can't seem to find it. So here's the poem. "In the midst of winter, I found there was within me an invincible summer, and that makes me happy. For it says that no matter how hard the world pushes against me, within me there's something stronger, something better pushing right back." In the midst of our difficult circumstances, in the midst of things pushing against me from all sides, there is something within me that pushes back against the darkness, and it's an invincible summer. When you feel like giving up on yourself is when being able to feel those spaces in yourself that where the invincible summer resides is when it's the most important. And I have never I've never in my life um, really struggled with ideas of ending my own life. I've never been to that spot where I felt so completely hopeless that the only option that felt okay to me would be to check out completely. And I really empathize with people who really do get to that point of despair. And my life has not been untouched by people who died by suicide. And I don't want to assume that the things that I'm saying today will help with that depth of despair and hopelessness. I hope it does. I hope it does. And I know that, a very common thing to say is if you're really struggling, please reach out. And I don't know what else to say besides that. If you're really struggling because you can't even find that spot in yourself of the invincible summer, I hope desperately that there is someone in your life that can see that you're struggling to find that and can be a support to you. And I hope that even if you can't find that invincible summer in yourself, that you can find enough of a space to know that people love you and want you around, that you can reach out to them. I don't know what else to say about that. But for those of you who more so what it feels like is that you feel like giving up on yourself, that you don't necessarily want to give up on life, but that you feel like you've depleted all your reserves, that you feel like your motivation is non-existent, that you feel perhaps worthless, or you can't find your purpose, or you just don't know what to do next. And so I want to talk about probably the most important ways that you can find the will to go on, the how you can find that invincible summer in yourself. And the most important way is to bring in other voices. We have to find people who not only see the good parts of ourselves, but see the parts of ourselves that we have hidden because we've been ashamed. That we have people that see those really dark places that we're afraid to go to, and we'll go to them with us to find those people. And hopefully all of us have those people in our lives that, maybe they haven't been a person that you have shared with up to this point, some of those really dark and scary places that are difficult to go to by yourself. But I hope that you would take the risk of being vulnerable with the hope that deeper love and connection can happen. Because when we are facing circumstances where it is really difficult to find those spaces in ourselves to go on, because again, like maybe we don't feel like we're worth having joy in our life, maybe we don't feel like we will ever be happy again, that we need someone else to counteract that internal voice that we just listen to by default, someone else to tell us, I remember you were happy. And guess what? These feelings aren't going to last forever, because all of our emotions are transitory, that maybe can offer some other words of advice or wisdom in how to find those places in yourself, that they can help bust you out of a funk, that they can speak into your life in a way that you're not able to do for yourself right now, that they can bring another voice alongside your own to bolster and uplift you and remind you what it feels like to be alive, what it feels like to be engaged in your life, and remind you that there is the possibility that the best days that you are ever going to have in your life are ahead of you. What a beautiful hope to hang on to, and what a beautiful hope to hear from someone else, and someone else that has gone through really dark times and has come out the other end saying, okay, like I did it and you can do it too. Someone who's going to crawl down in that deep dark hole with you and say, like, I'll sit with you as long as you are here. You're not alone. Because the only thing worse than going through something terrible is going through something terrible alone. So that's the first thing. Bring in other voices that will help you continue to go on. And the other one is to remove the negative voices. There are people in your life that my guess is that right away their faces or their names are coming to your mind. This could be a family member, this could be a friend, this could be an authority figure in your life that they just make you feel bad about yourself, or they poo-poo your ideas, or they shut down your dreams, or tell you that your goals are stupid. They may not even say anything outright like that, but if you are, I've seen this many, many times with people who finally get to the spot where they're so fed up with the same old patterns in their lives, the same old unhealthy patterns, whether that's physical, mental, emotional patterns. And they get to the point where they're like, okay, enough is enough. I'm breaking these patterns. Well, if it's a physical unhealthy pattern where it's like, hey, I'm not going to stay up until 1 o'clock watching Netflix or scrolling on my phone. Like, I'm going to go to bed and get a good night's sleep. Or I am going to start working out or start eating healthy. I've seen this so many times with people who decide to change their diet. It's so difficult for the people around them to support lifestyle changes. It's so difficult. And if you also decide to interrupt relational patterns that have been going on for a really long time, I guarantee you that people are not going to like that. They're not going to like it. So part of finding this will in yourself to go on is removing the negative voices from your life. Now, you may not be able to separate from those relationships, but you have to stop perhaps going to them for feedback on the choices that you're making that you know are good for you. Or if they start to talk with you about something that every time you come away from that conversation, you just feel down about it, or you feel, burnt out, or you feel sad about yourself, feel bad about yourself, refuse to have that conversation with them. Direct it a different way. Start to protect your health holistically from a really, what's the word I'm looking for? From like a very tenacious space. So get very, very clear on what is most healthy for you in all of these different areas. And then don't be afraid to fight for those. Like, dig your heels in and fight for those things. Fight for those things. Another thing is that when we have, as I'm talking about getting rid of negative voices in your life, sometimes the most negative voice is an internal voice. And how do you get away from that? How do you get away from that when you can't just shut an internal door on the voice that's telling you that you're crap, or telling you that you're not worth it, or that nobody's going to like what you do, or whatever? How do you shut the door on that conversation? How do you silence that voice? And there's two things that I want to suggest for that. One of them is just to get really curious, because oftentimes the voice that says that the most is a really, really fearful part of yourself that often is much, much younger than you really are. So if there's a part of you that says like, what, don't try that new thing, that makes perfect sense that there's a part of us that wouldn't want anything to be different, because that feels like a lack of security. That feels really unstable. And if there's a part of ourselves that has been, abandoned in the past, or felt like their environment was unreliable, or their caretakers in their life were unreliable, it makes sense that you would feel even that kind of self-directed instability. It makes perfect sense. So get curious, start to ask some questions about that part of yourself that tends to just be this like negative, maybe naggy voice, this worrying voice, this fearful voice. Just start to get curious, ask it some questions. And then secondly, the work of Byron Katie is really, really helpful in this. When you have a thought that comes up, you can ask, is this true? And that may seem like a really like simplistic question to ask, but it is so powerful. So if you have a thought that comes up like, Why would I start to work out because I know I'm just going to quit? Is that true? Maybe your patterns have indicated that that's probable or possible, but is it true beyond a shadow of a doubt? Can you know that it's true? Now, if it's not true, what do you want to think instead? What do you want to think instead? If you cannot for sure know that the thought that you have is true, why are we continuing to think it? It's like being able to watch your thoughts kind of go through this sieve in your brain and catch them and be like, oh, do I want to keep this one? It'd be like if you were, I mean, my kids love grapes and I love grapes too. But they are very insistent that they will not eat squishy grapes. And I don't blame them. I don't like squishy grapes either. And so when I'm pulling the grapes off of the vine and I'm putting them in their bowl, I'm testing each one of them to see if, I'm going to give it to them or not. And that's a great analogy for what we can do with our thoughts. As they're coming through, we're just kind of testing them. See if they're squishy. See if they're rotten thoughts. See if they are not helpful, if they're not good, if they're not going to contribute to our health, if they're going to give us an upset tummy. Squishy, squishy. If they're squishy grapes, if they're squishy thoughts, if they're rotten thoughts, you don't have to hang on to them. You don't have to ingest them. You don't have to bring them in and continue to let them feed your soul. That sounded like a really big way to think about that. But I don't think that we can actually underestimate how powerful our thoughts are in this aspect of finding that inner motivation to keep going towards the things that we know are good for us. So if we can't know for sure that it's true, because our feelings aren't facts, and just because we think something doesn't mean it's true. That was like a revelation to me when I first heard that. What? I thought like everything that I thought, maybe not about like in the sciences or whatever, but I was sure that everything that I thought in my head, particularly about myself, was true. And it's not. It's not true. And the more that we can become aware of the thoughts that we're having, the more that we can ask those questions about, is this true? Is it actually helping me feel the way that I want to feel? Is it actually helping me show up in my life the way that I want to? If not, let's pick some different ones. And it can take practice. I mean, it takes work to do that, but with practice, some of those thoughts start to be quieted. Some of those parts of ourselves start to feel attended to, start to feel comforted, and they don't need to be so loud anymore because you're, telling them it's okay that I'm afraid of this thing, and it's okay if I mess up, it's okay if I fail. It's okay. It's okay. So when you feel like giving up, how to find the will to go on. Number one is to bring in other voices and to remove negative ones, including your own. And the thing that really keeps me going, is this little spark in me that I don't know how else to describe, but it's like a knowing. I just know there's something in there that is maybe the creative spark, or that it's this little nugget of a drive towards making my life meaningful and working towards a purpose that I have. And this is particular to me, but not unique to me, that I have in me a strong desire to alleviate emotional suffering for other people. Part of that is just by sharing my story, by sharing my own struggles with grief and loss and business ownership and all of those things. Part of that is just in the satisfaction of being able to tell the truth about my experience. And there's that little nugget in me that is, sometimes it feels only like a hot little coal in my soul. Like that's all that it is. I've gone through periods where it's like a blaze, like almost like hot lava, like spewing up out of this volcano, where it just is like pouring out of me, and I feel so connected and so lit up. And then there are times that I go through where it just feels like this tiny little like coal that is barely kind of red, and maybe putting off a little bit of smoke. Um, and so it's like finding things that help me stoke that fire. And some of that is through my relationship. Some of that is just tapping into the things that help me feel connected to my creativity. A lot of that has to do with like being in nature, for sure. Being in nature, learning new things. These are all things that stoke that fire. But the other day I was talking with a woman about I was talking with her about how difficult it is as a parent to watch our children suffer and to go through impossibly difficult things that we can't fix. And we were talking about it in context of, when our kids are really down in the despair and can't really seem to see the light. And I can only say this because I've been there myself, so I don't even have to say it in context of like for my children. But this analogy of for those of you who aren't on the video, I'll explain what I'm doing. But I'm holding my hand about 6 to 9 inches from my face, and if you think about it, like this is our difficult circumstance, and it is so close to us. Whoa, why am I going to start crying? Oh man. Okay. When the difficult circumstance is so close to us, sometimes we feel like we can't even see the light that's behind it. When our difficult circumstances are so in our face and they are so big and it feels like we cannot see around it. That sometimes feels like, are good things even out there anymore? Because our view is so obstructed by this hard circumstance. And what I believe to be true, what I have experienced, and what I think is so helpful in this analogy is that sometimes all you can see is the light barely peeking out from around the edges of the hard thing. And that sometimes is just enough to let you know that there are good things ahead. Sometimes all you can see is this like little sliver of light around that hard thing. And I guess to me, if I'm talking about like the invincible summer, perhaps that's the light around it, is this light shining from this place within myself that is connected to a belief that I am meant for more, and connected to a belief that there are good things ahead. It's connected to this belief that even if I can't see it now, even if I don't have a clear view of what the good things are, if I don't even have an inkling of what they are, because sometimes it feels like that, right? In like the really dark times and the really deep spaces, oh man, sometimes it's really hard to believe that like hope still exists. And it can feel like, well, I guess this is my life now. I guess my life is just sad now. I guess my life is just grief and sadness forever. And I know that's not true. I know that's not true because I know that from my own experience, and I know that from like data that, oh man, that even the hard times, like the joy commingles with the hard times. I just watched this movie. It is not a new movie, and I can't believe it took me this long to see it, but it's Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. And I'm going to ruin it for you. So if you haven't seen it yet and you don't want it to get ruined, maybe you should skip by this part. But the idea, the concept in this movie is Jim Carrey and Kate Winslet, and they fall in love and they have a great and then tumultuous relationship. And they both decide to go through this procedure where they have the memories of the other person eradicated from their brains. So it's like intentional brain damage to remove those particular memories of the other person because the breakup was just so painful. The memories of the other person were so painful. And I won't tell you the end of it, but when they're showing the process of Jim Carrey going through this, he realizes that if he is removing her, if he's removing the pain from his life, he also it has to remove the one moment, the first time when he's with her and he says something along the lines of like, "This is the happiest I've ever been in my life." And that is like, oh man, that is a powerful, powerful story. And all of us know that this is true, that we can't like separate the painful things out from the beautiful moments, because some of the painful moments in my life have also come hand in hand with the moments when I have felt the most close and connected to other people. And I also have some profound moments where I've been really, really low, and I have like caught a whiff of the breeze of the invincible summer. Like I think this is why I like this picture of the invincible summer so much, is because I can close my eyes and I can visualize what this looks like to me. The invincible summer to me looks like these like rolling green hills and this beautiful tree with the light filtering through the leaves and this warm breeze, and it just smells like summer. It smells like summer. So when I think about what I feel like when I visualize this place, it's like it helps me find that feeling. It helps me find that feeling in my memories. It helps me look for that feeling when I'm pursuing my creativity. It helps me find that feeling, even if it's just for a moment, when I am, in nature with my feet in the grass, or have a moment where I really do get to stand and have the light filter through the leaves onto my face and feel the warmth of that. It's like it's like intentionally stacking up evidence that that place in me is not gone. That even when I'm feeling so depleted and yeah, not hopeless, but like leaning in that direction, that I know that's still there. Because if I'm feeling it out here in my circumstances, I know that it's resonating with something in me. And what a beautiful, beautiful thing to recognize that if there wasn't anything in me that was responding to that, then that I think that would scare me more than anything else. But when you feel something resonating within you, whether it's in, a good conversation with a friend or feeling emotional about a movie, it's because there's something in you that resonates with that, that mirrors that, that wants that, that longs for that, that yearns for that. That's your invincible summer. I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful that I didn't find that book for Annie's funeral, because I needed it so bad a couple weeks ago when I found it. I needed it so badly. I'm going to read you this poem again. In the midst of winter, I found there was within me an invincible summer, and that makes me happy. For it says that no matter how hard the world pushes against me, within me there's something stronger, something better, pushing right back. Okay, before we go,